The gaming industry has seen a rise in making remakes of some of our older favorites. We have the likes of, say, Capcom with their Resident Evil games, in that they've been remaking many of their past and earlier titles. Square Enix is doing this with Final Fantasy VII, where it's sort of like this mishmash of a remake and a sequel all at the same time. Some games, when looking back at them, could definitely benefit from a remake, and in other cases a remaster may have just been all that was needed. Dead Space received a remake. The original holds up considerably well and aged very nicely. I would have never asked for a remake for that title, but we got one anyway. Then let's shift our focus to Ubisoft, where they are very much interested in following this trend. But what if their games really do need that full-on remake treatment? Apparently they are working on a remake to Assassin's Creed Black Flag. While not announced at the making of this video, it has been rumored and it is in development and apparently on the way. This one baffles me. Black Flag is great, a very strong entry, loads of fun, and not really a title that I would look to that needs a remake. Maybe this is a way for Ubisoft to start getting some easy wins under their belt. I have no idea. But this isn't the only remake that Ubisoft is developing. They are working on one for Splinter Cell as well. So all the way back in 2021, Ubisoft announced a remake for Splinter Cell 1. At the time, it was at least kind of cool that Splinter Cell was being acknowledged, something exclusively related to that series. Sam would pop up here and there in other people's games, but he was never really the main lead in his own game for a long time. At the time, there was an interview with the creative director on the project, and he provided some information along with a little bit of clarification. He said that the project was going to be more of a remake, as opposed to a remaster. So that right there, this was not going to be the same exact game with some little enhancements, but rather it was going to be something that was built from the ground up. In addition, it seemed like they were starting all over with this game. Ubisoft wanted to make sure the spirit of the earlier titles remained intact with this remake. The team was aiming for more of the initial Splinter Cell games and their feel. One thing I really liked was that it was going to be a linear title, rather than be an open world one. Now I do think that Sam in Splinter Cell Action could fit in a wider area, maybe more of a hub-like area, but I don't think that Splinter Cell should turn into a big vast open world game. Go back to those original titles, or even the whole series, and see how linearity was a strength. And through that you could provide a lot of options to the player to tackle, along with the levels and areas being able to be done in different ways. The emphasis was going to be placed on stealth. The developers even cite that they were very aware on what makes classic Splinter Cell so special to begin with. Ubisoft wanted to use this game as their foundation to build off of for the future titles, so it would appear that at the time, they were at least trying to plan for the future, and not have this remake be a one-off type of thing. So even from those brief bits of information, as someone who does not want a remake to Splinter Cell, but rather just a sequel, Ubisoft was actually saying a lot of the right stuff. There were some things that did have me worried. One big one being is, where is Ironside? There was no mention of him at all in that initial announcement so many years ago. They talk about staying true to the design of the original games and all of that, providing gadget options for the player, being very focused on stealth over action. Great, that's all good and important, but where is Sam? Where is our Sam? Ironside is thankfully still with us, and as far as I can tell, still interested in Splinter Cell. He loves this character. So for the remake, if Ubisoft wants to stay true to the classic feel and bring back stuff that us fans care about, that would mean bringing back Sam, and in all honesty, just bring back the entire voice cast if you can, like all the major players if possible. Sam is Ironside, and Ironside is Sam. There's no way around it. Now sure, they can recast Sam and have it be a different actor. They did try this back with Blacklist, and while the guy that did that game, he wasn't bad, it just wasn't Sam to me. I think it's an easy win. If Ironside is still with us and he wants to be part of the project, then use him. He added so much to the character that went beyond the script. Something else I found interesting was the mention of having this remake be a good foundation for Ubisoft to build off of. This doesn't really make any sense when you look at the entire series. Blacklist was well received, and I think generally a game that people liked. Honestly, the game is very good, and it's not like it put the story in a bad position either. There's plenty of more ways that you could play out those situations following that game. And Splinter Cell has already showed that it can have its games be very different from each other in their approaches from sequel to sequel. Just look at how Chaos Theory was compared to Double Agent, or how Double Agent is compared to Conviction. Why not just keep that line going? Going back and rebooting it kind of makes it seem like you guys have no interesting ideas of your own to create a brand new story story and setting. You just want to go back and just build off of the past, and use it as your starting point. It's why I stand by that Splinter Cell does not need a remake, it just needs a sequel. But maybe the talent needed for this is not found at Ubisoft anymore. While I personally do not want a remake for Splinter Cell, I do think that something like this can be done right. I would gladly like to be proved wrong here. I look back on the first game, and it's still great, plays great. There's a few things that I would probably improve if possible, like some of the aiming with the pistol. You could have your sights dead set on a light, and miss even though it would appear that you should be hitting it. But the slower, more tactical, and maybe even realistic movements, that stuff is still great. You felt like a super spy in that game. But I go back to the original question I had with this video: where is the remake? The announcement was back in 2021, and now years later, nothing. Was the project cancelled? What is going on with the development? Has the scope changed? Is it still a remake, or maybe it's turned into something else? We really have no idea at all. And now with all of the chaos going on at Ubisoft, we may never even see this game either. One thing is key is that Ubisoft honestly should not have announced this title, especially if it had nothing to show for it. It was sort of one of those, hey, remember how awesome the first game was? Yeah, we're gonna go back and remake it. We currently have nothing to show for it, and we can't confirm if Ironside is coming back for it. But trust us, we're making it and it's gonna be good. Like, why even announce it in the first place? By announcing something like this so far out from its release, you leave many of us players and fans wondering about the project, and if it's even dead now. Also, by letting a game announcement just linger out there, I think it can only hurt the game as a whole, and allows players to start having unrealistic expectations on it. And that is not the fault of the player. This is the fault of poor marketing on Ubisoft's side of things. Personally, I think there's a really good chance that this thing gets cancelled, and we may never see any footage or gameplay of this title at all. We might just be left in a world where we have those original games, and that's it. The sad thing is that Splinter Cell should have never become a dormant series for Ubisoft. They had something great, and should have continued with it. I guess a blessing in disguise is that Splinter Cell was never ruined. Like, none of the modern writers were ever able to get in there and ruin the character or anything like that. Something we saw happen to so many legacy IPs over the last several years. If Sam and Splinter Cell is something that will remain in the past, I'm okay with that as well. We have a great set of games. They still play great and will continue to be great till the end of time. If this remake actually comes out, well then I hope that it can actually deliver on it and prove me wrong. I want more good games. I would prefer that Splinter Cell's legacy is never ruined. What are your thoughts on all of this? Did you want the remake? Do you think the remake is still coming out? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.